Hi everyone, my name is Allie and today I wanted to talk about a few of my favorite resources that I use a lot while I'm teaching. So a lot of this video is focused on voice resources, although there's a couple piano things in here as well. So the first thing I wanted to share is my character analysis sheet, which is something that I made a few years ago and I've been using it for a really long time and I really love it. One of the most important things I find when it comes to singing is the performance and how are you going to embody the character that you're singing as, regardless of whether or not it's a musical theater piece. Even if it's just a regular pop song, how are you going to perform it so that you're not just standing up there looking straight ahead, terrified, and singing. So this is something that I give a lot of my students, and I'm just going to share my screen so that you can get an idea of what it looks like. So this is my musical theater character analysis worksheet. So like I said, I made this a few years ago, and it says musical theater, although it can also work for just general pop songs. It's a little bit different though. So I typically use this when we're doing a musical theater piece. So these first questions, as you can see, are for character development. So I assign the student a couple of questions a week, pretty simple. And for this first section, they'll answer them from the perspective of their character. So for example, if we're doing the song On My Own from Les Mis, they would answer as their character Eponine. So then for the first one, it says, what is your full name? So they would write, my name is Eponine Thénardier. And then where are you from? And they research this and they can do things like watch the movie, Google some of these questions, and then they'll answer from their character's perspective. These are my family, these are my friends. I am singing this song at this time of day, blah, 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 about this. And it really helps them get to know their song so that I'm not just telling them what the song is about. And it's really nice because then they kind of are thinking for themselves and figuring out their own song. So there's all these questions that they answer as the character, and then we sort of move outside and look at it as the actor or the singer. So defining words, taking a look at the mood changes in the song. One thing with voice is that usually, the pattern is verse, chorus, something like that. And so we want to figure out what we can do differently in each chorus, for example, when all the words are the same. What can you do differently to make the song stay interesting? So why are we singing this again? Not just because we have to, but what reason does the character have to sing these words again? Is there a difference in mood? Is there a difference in dynamic? That kind of thing. So we're going to look at this, define the words. What's happening around the character? So, what time of day, where in the musical does it happen? And, if you're doing a pop song, these are things that you can kind of start to imagine for yourself. And as long as it makes sense within the context of the song, there's not really a wrong answer. You can kind of think of it for yourself and find a way to relate to the song in your own way. Because if someone really young is singing about something like heartbreak, they have to find a way to make it make sense for themselves. And then something like watching the full production. And then we get into things like movement or blocking. So that is stage movement, how they're going to move around when they perform the song. So which part of their body is the leading point? Now, I took drama in high school, so something that I talked about in my drama class is physicality of the character, and we would have to walk around the drama room and try to experiment with different, leading points. Does this character walk really fast? Are they walking like they're on a mission? Do they lead with their head? Do they lead with their feet? How are they leaning? That kind of thing. And how is that different from your own movement? And then why do you think they move that way? Do they have this confidence and ambition? Are they shy, and do they kind of walk like this? You know, it's all very different, and these are things that we don't often think about, but it's very important to think about them when we perform. And that's something that I've learned a lot in my own degree as well. I'm studying classical voice performance at the University of Alberta, and we always talk about that when we do, you know, songs from operas. Why is your character doing what they're doing? What are they thinking? What are they looking at? Who are they singing to? Because if you don't, that's why a lot of people find that type of music boring, because it's really easy to just go up there and stand and sing it, but it's really, really hard to perform it and act it out. And that's the most important part of a performance, is the emotion and your interpretation of it, and not necessarily the technical things, which we work on a lot in our lessons, but are not very important to an audience when they're watching you, because they don't know all the stuff you've been working on. Anyways, and then we go into things like costuming, which we talk about together. Costuming if we do a performance like Sherwood Park Music Festival. Props. And then we start to look at choreography, and that's a little bit more of a specific thing. So sometimes we don't get to this last part of the worksheet. The most important part, I find, is the actor questions and the character questions, because they really get these people thinking about their character and why they're singing that song. So that is by far my favorite resource to use when I'm teaching. I really loved it. I found it to be really helpful over the last few years, especially in musical theater. The next thing I wanted to share is some of my favorite exercises. So the first exercises I'll do, there's 2 voice exercises and then 1 piano exercise. So this one is one that I learned pretty recently, and it's to help a voice student sort of find their head voice, because I find that sometimes students will struggle. They'll be able to access their chest voice really well. So I'll show you, if you speak in your regular speaking range and put your hand on your chest, you'll be able to feel it vibrate here, and that's what your chest voice is. Then your head voice is when you start to get a little bit higher. But what happens is, if we explain it like that, then there often is a bit of a gap between your head voice and your chest voice, and then people will really struggle with bringing their head voice up and bringing their chest voice up and bringing their head voice down, the way around. So this exercise helps bring your head voice down, because it can actually go a lot lower than we think. So this exercise, you're going to start in your chest voice and then sort of slide up to your head voice and try to carry the head voice all the way back down to where you started. So it's sort of an owl-like sound. It goes like this. See there, and moving my chest voice, but you can actually carry your head voice typically all the way down. See, that is my head voice still. And you'll be able to tell, because if you put your hand here and sing up high, it doesn't vibrate up there, but you'll kind of be able to feel it in what we call the mask, which is, you know, not the COVID face mask, but sort of in the nose and forehead area, you almost feel it vibrate. Sometimes it's hard to describe, but once you get used to the feeling, it makes a little bit more sense. So I'll do that exercise a couple times. And then see, in that last note, there's a little bit less heaviness and less weight, and that's because I kept the head voice all the way down. And something else that you want to focus on when you do this is keeping the vibration, the vibrato, really even in your chest voice. So you'll know that you're using the right amount of air and the right speed of air when it vibrates evenly. So I'll show you. If I sing this top note on ooh, and I start really breathy. This is a lot of times what I'll hear in beginner students. And you can hear kind of the grainy sound with air kind of escaping. And so what I'll do is have them say, you know, now you're going to try, hold that note and move the air a little bit faster until you can feel it vibrate evenly. And that's kind of the golden spot of the voice that we want to start working on consistently. So that's that exercise. And then there's another exercise that's sort of similar that I work on to help with runs. And so we focus on not necessarily getting super specific notes, but more just moving them quickly and not worrying about trying to focus each one really, really clearly. Just don't think about it so much. Just feel it and let it go, if that makes any sense. So the exercise sounds like this. And see, some of the notes weren't necessarily super precise, but as you do it more, they will get there. And we'll work on getting those runs nice and fast. So that's a fun one. It's lots of fun. And the last exercise I wanted to talk about is a little bit more piano focused. So it's called a formula pattern. It comes from the RCM books. Starting in grade 2, I believe, a lot of students will know what a formula pattern is. And the reason that I like it is because it's longer, it uses both hands, it helps with flexibility, as do other scales and triads. And it's a really good one to practice phrasing. Now, phrasing is kind of like expression when we talk about voice. It's super important. And the way that I explain it is when someone talks, if they talk super monotone like this, they're not very fun to listen to. But if we add a little bit of expression, then it makes it more interesting, and it's the exact same thing with piano. So a formula pattern is a good way to practice this, because when we get to songs and working on expression, you don't want the concept of phrasing to be something super foreign and confusing. And so practicing it in your warm-ups is a really good way to make sure that doesn't happen. So I will add things like crescendos and decrescendos to my formula patterns and triads and other scales to help with that. So this is just a simple 2-octave C major formula pattern. So there's changes in things like dynamics. So there's, the crescendo, decrescendo thing that looks like this, just adding them throughout and kind of improvising it a little bit. So that's my favorite piano exercise, and I will sometimes teach that to students who haven't even made it to the RCM level 2 yet, just so that we can work on those little phrasing elements. So I hope you enjoyed some of my favorite things. We have our character analysis worksheet and then some of my favorite warm-ups. Yeah. I hope everyone has a good day. Bye!